And hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. And we have a ton to talk about. Of course, the big news, Mike LaFleur and the Jets parting ways. We got a lot to talk about. What the whole Mike LaFleur situation, his possible replacements. On top of that, a quarterback on the move in the NFL officially, and Robert Saleh will be speaking to the media momentarily. We will bring you all the latest on that. It was not scheduled today for Robert Saleh, so we will hear what he has to say, probably in regards to the whole Mike LaFleur situation. Before I get to the candidates, and I have a big list of candidates, but I will also preface it by saying, like, even though I have a big list and there's a lot of candidates I think some of the members of the Jets fan base would really like to see, I have specific options, and I will explain to you why I think that they are the correct course and why I like them better as the offensive coordinator. And of course, we will get to your comments. We will make sure to get to them in a future video if you're joining us after the live stream. And also check out our community page. I like to get your feedback. I put polls out yesterday about the whole LaFleur situation and asked you what your thoughts were as Jet fans. And my question was very simple. Did the Jets make the right call firing LaFleur? 68% of you said yes. So I feel like the vast majority of the Jet fans felt this was going to be the right way. And don't worry, guys, I also took your poll into account, what the Jets video you wanted to see this week. Look, I had Here and Gone ready to go. If you even looked at the channel yesterday, that video was supposed to be today at 11 o'clock, where I went over 12 New York Jets who are on the roster bubble for 2023, and if they will be back or they will be gone. That will be coming at a later date, I promise you. But we had to kind of get to the breaking news and the biggest story around the Jets, right? So I think you can understand that. So people have been asking me, what are my thoughts on the whole Mike LaFleur situation? Do I think he should have been fired? And here's my initial thoughts. I get why LaFleur was fired. I don't love the timing. I thought they were going to do this, they would do it early. And it's very interesting the way they worded this. And this is why I think it adds a little bit to the confusion behind this whole move. And it was what Connor Hughes, the Jets insider for SNY, had to say, which was yesterday in response to the news. The Jets were planning to bring back Mike LaFleur back as their offensive coordinator in 2023. Several other teams reached out. The Jets talked to LaFleur. After that discussion, they agreed to allow him to pursue those opportunities, which I thought was very intriguing because I've never heard of this kind of a situation. My thoughts are they probably were asking him to take on a reduced role potentially, maybe bringing in a veteran presence to help him along with the offensive coordinator position. And who knows, maybe LaFleur just feels like he has a better situation somewhere else. Maybe he wants to go back to the drawing board, be a QB coach, be an offensive assistant, and then get another opportunity as a play caller. It's a weird thing because it's not like the Jets completely outright fired him. It seems like the Jets wanted to bring him back, but maybe it was the situation. It was just a weird, like, I've never heard of this. But either way, at the end of the day, Mike LaFleur will not be the offensive coordinator in 2023. And my thoughts on this was the grass better be greener on the other side. Because I get making change. I get going out there and trying to make a move. I get trying to appease fan bases. I get that someone has to take responsibility for this collapse. But this will also go into my coaching decision. I think the Jets, they cannot miss on this offensive coordinator. They have put themselves in a box where this will be very difficult. And the problem now, too, is you've put this offensive coordinator in a lame duck position with the head coach because you're basically giving a playoff mandate to Robert Saleh and to Joe Douglas. And what really good potential candidate would want to come here? Now, I know the arguments. Well, the Jets have good offensive line pieces. The Jets have Garrett Wilson. The Jets have Breece Hall. They have a lot of fun toys. I get that. But you also are curious, does this OC have to try to salvage Zach Wilson? Will they have to work with a veteran quarterback? Will they be working? It depends on who they're going to be working with. Now, interestingly, Zach Rosenblatt, another Jets beat reporter, said that it will not be scheme specific to the Shanahan system. So that I think does widen the net of the potential candidates that could be brought in. But here are my thoughts on LaFleur. I think he got a bit of a raw deal. Now, LaFleur had the pressure of not only being a first-time play caller, but also trying to develop a rookie quarterback, trying to develop a quarterback that wasn't developing, and also had to deal with the passing of Greg Knapp, who was going to take a lot of the development process away from him, take that off his table. So LaFleur, I defended LaFleur a lot this year because people saying, oh, LaFleur's the issue. I said, well, to me, it's more the quarterback. If your quarterback can't execute the very basics of an offense, like a slant pass, a screen pass, a 5-yard out, like the easiest routes in the NFL, and when every other quarterback under LaFleur has looked significantly better, that to me is a big issue. And look, LaFleur had a tough go because I look at Jeff Ulbrich as a great example. Jeff Ulbrich, everyone wanted him gone. Now the Jets had a top 5 defense. I don't think that this offense was going to be a top 5 offense next year. I didn't think that dramatically, but we also have to remember this offense lost their best player in Breece Hall. This offense lost their best offensive lineman. This offense went through 6 offensive tackles this year. This offense was completely unstable at the quarterback position all season long. They went through 4 quarterbacks this year. So I have to look at that as a whole picture and feel like LaFleur is getting a bit of the short end of the stick, but I get why people don't like the play calling. There are things in the that concern me about LaFleur. I mean, this is a system that's built on running the football, and yet at every chance it seemed like they wanted to abandon the run. This was a system that, when it wasn't targeting Garrett Wilson, wasn't working. This was a system that, despite spending a draft pick and a bunch of money on the tight end position, didn't want to utilize the tight ends a lot. This was a system that has Elijah Moore, who's arguably one of the best Jets playmakers, not getting a certain amount of touches and not getting the ball this year. And look, I like Braxton Berrios. I think Braxton Berrios is a nice gadget player. I think he is what he is. He's a good role player and a really good depth piece. But he shouldn't be getting all these touches. He got way too many touches this year, and Elijah Moore wasn't getting touches. I mean, they couldn't figure out how to get him involved. They couldn't figure out how to get Denzel Mims at times involved. So the other thing which hurt LaFleur down the stretch, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, Jet fans, but one of the things that I appreciate about LaFleur in his rookie season was when the offense wasn't working, he would dive into a deep bag of tricks, whether it was the passes that they were convert big first downs on, the wide receiver passes, the double reverses, the tons of motion, like the wild play calling. It was innovative last year. That was one of the things coming into this season. I'm like, you have an offensive coordinator which was very innovative. And look, I get that with this great defense and with the lack of the stability at the quarterback position, maybe LaFleur didn't want to risk it. Maybe he didn't trust this team to hold on to the football. But over the last 3 weeks, when this offense could not score a single touchdown, I kept thinking to myself, where is LaFleur from last year? Where are the creative gadget plays? And I get that the offensive line isn't good, but the Jets needed to try something. And my thought process was, I'd rather have this offense fail, but at least try to be innovative, at least try to be different, at least try to push the envelope and be creative than what we saw over the last 3 weeks, which was a very vanilla game plan. It was basically, this offense basically went into the last 3 weeks of the season with the mentality of not trying to score, but basically, let's not screw it up and try to keep this game close in the fourth quarter and hope something breaks our way. And with that defense, they had the opportunities. But even if they were close in the fourth quarter, this team couldn't pull it out. And I think that is the final reason why LaFleur is gone. And look, this is my thing. I don't think LaFleur is the biggest issue with this team. I still think it's Zach Wilson. Now, I get that you want to say, well, isn't that his job to develop that Zach Wilson? Yes. Does that fall on the OC? Yes. But it almost feels like the OC is always the easy scapegoat in the NFL. Oh, the offense isn't great. Let's just fire the OC. And look, I'm very curious to see, not only with LaFleur gone, what's the rest of this coaching staff looks like. I think Ron Calabrese, the QB coach, isn't safe. Will O-line coach John Bennett be back? I'm not sure. Another one I'm curious to watch is Brant Boyer. I mean, the special teams unit, which was a strength for this team to start the season, not great. And this is also coming from Robert Saleh's press conference. So there's a couple Jets openings on the Robert Saleh giving us his basically. Robert Saleh insists the Jets' offensive problems are not one person's fault. Robert Saleh on the rumors, Woody Johnson pressuring him to fire Mike LaFleur. Woody gives us full autonomy with the decision making. He's completely supportive of any decision we make. That's the thing about this, and the way I give Connor Hughes credit for wording that yesterday. I get the feeling that, yes, from the outside, everyone's saying, oh, this is Woody's decision. Did Woody have influence on this decision? There's a good chance. But the thing I would also argue, though, is it's telling you that the Jets were planning to bring him back. I'm wondering if LaFleur, I'm curious to see where he goes, because I'm wondering if he feels like he's not ready for this offensive coordinator job. Maybe he feels overwhelmed. Maybe he feels like he is a bit early. And look, Saleh's pitching today too. They got a top 5 defense, a great group of young players, and a plan to be aggressive as heck, quote, to fix the QB position and plan to fix the offensive line. Ron Calabrese was not fired, but he will not be with the Jets next season. Not a surprise. The Jets wide receiver coach is open, meaning Miles Austin is gone, although Chad Johnson put on Twitter the other day that he would be the Jets wide receiver coach. Look, I wouldn't hate it. I mean, if Chad Johnson's really serious, so the Jets have to fill the OC, wide receiver, and offensive line coach. But right now, the other offensive staff is returning. So one big staff member that's returning is tight ends coach Ron Middleton, which, again, I think is a great move. I really love Ron. And again, guys, I see your chat. I will get to them in a second. But I wanted to go through this first, because then I think I could get more of your comments and could get more of your opinions. And we will, of course, get back to Saleh's press conference today. We will also talk about the quarterback that is officially on the market as well for a little bit. But let us talk about the possible replacements, because I do think that's important, because now the Jets are looking for a replacement. Now, I've come up with a list. These are some candidates that I think are wide open, a lot all over the place. And I will tell you who my top 3 are, and you'll see a common theme with them. And while you might not think they're the best candidates, I think that they're best for the position for a very specific reason, and I will tell you why. But let me start this off with this first, because I know I'm going to get this in the comments. I know I'm going to get this in the chat. I'm going to nip this right in the butt right away. Frank Reich is not coming to be the OC. I love Frank Reich. I would love Frank Reich to be the OC. He would be, if I had any choice in the world and there was no limitations, he would be my first choice. However, Frank Reich is already getting head coaching interviews. He has one with the Panthers. He has one with the Broncos. Frank Reich doesn't have to be an OC to get another head coaching job. He might get another head coaching job this season, or he'll do what Doug Pearson likely did, sit out for a season and become a head coaching job. I mean, he might look at the Jets and go, look, if I don't get a head coaching job, there's a chance I might be able to get the Jets head coaching job next year. There will always be openings. There will always be a demand for offensive coaches. I think Frank Reich's going to look at this and say, why would I take a step down and be the Jets OC? The only way it might work is if Woody assures him he'll be the next head coach, but then you're already creating distrust in the staff that if Saleh fails, Frank Reich's going to be the next head coach. So Frank Reich is not going to work. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Frank Reich, you didn't mention Frank Reich. Straight up front, I don't think that's happening. I don't see that happening at all, because I think he's going to be a head coach. And if he's not a head coach, I think he takes a year off and becomes a head coach again next year, because he is well respected in a lot of different he's respected in a lot of different NFL circles. All right, here we go. So the first candidate on my list would be Darrell Bevell. He is the Dolphins quarterback passing game coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. And look, here's the reason why. Good relationship with Saleh, of course, comes from that San Francisco tree. He has been an offensive coordinator for a couple different teams. So he has had some experience calling plays, which is something that LaFleur didn't have when he first came in. Of all the candidates that are not really former offensive coordinators, because again, he's had some minor experience, I think he will be a name that's constantly tied to the Jets because of those ties and also a quarterback's coach. So I could see that being a potential fit. Another one is Tom Clements, the Packers quarterback coach. He's 69 years old, but he's been the offensive coordinator for the Bills and Packers in the past and will be coming from the staff of Matt LaFleur. And we all know the relation to Matt LaFleur is Saleh's best friend. So that could be an interesting one. Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, look, I know it was a disaster as a head coach, but he is still a highly regarded offensive coordinator. I mean, he, again, comes from Matt LaFleur, Saleh's best friend. He was the OC there, basically for the under Aaron Rodgers. And here's another interesting thing too. He was the OC for the Jaguars and a QB's coach before that with the Jaguars. Guess who was with the Jaguars at the time he was there? Robert Saleh. So I do think Hackett is someone that would be a big candidate. I know in the public court of opinion, he's not highly regarded right now, but he would be someone that the Jets will consider. Now, I know this will be a popular choice, but it will have an asterisk, and I'll explain. Gary Kubiak. Look, Kubiak 61. He retired in 2021. And I don't think he will come out just to be an offensive coordinator, although there are ties to Saleh. Saleh worships him as an offensive mind. He's got a good relationship. The one thing I would say, this is the real kicker, is if the Jets can make a package deal, which is the following. Kubiak comes out of retirement if Clint Kubiak, who is the Broncos passing game coordinator and QB's coach, comes with him. I think that could certainly be something where basically Kubiak comes in for a year, maybe two, but the whole purpose of him coming in is to bring Clint in as like the QB's coach, groom Clint, show Clint the play calling process, and groom Clint into an eventual offensive coordinator. So I know that's a bit of a long shot, and there's a lot of caveats with that, but I do think that could be an option and has to be on the table. Could the Jets go in-house? Ron Milton, someone that the Jets players really respect, someone that the Jets players really love. He came in and filmed as interim head coach. He was a coach of the Senior Bowl, got glowing reviews as the coach of the Senior Bowl. I mean, look, he's a tight end, and we all know his signature catchphrase is everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. The only big thing is he's never called plays before, but I do think it would be a very popular choice within the Jets locker room if they wanted to stay internal. Personally, I think that they're going to go outside because as much as I love Ron Milton, I think that the Jets still want to make a bit of a splash and be a selling point for this offensive coordinator and bringing in a play caller that's never been the first time. Even with Bevel, at least Bevel has some experience. And finally, Matt Nagy. Look, I know that things went bad in Chicago, but you have to remember that Chicago was a playoff team. They got to the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky, and he's been an offensive coordinator with the Chiefs before. And right now he's the senior assistant and QB's coach with the Chiefs. Look, he's had great play calling. He's been a good offensive coordinator. And look, I know these guys have failed as head coaches, but they are experienced play callers. So going through that list, those are some of the possible replacements for the offensive coordinator job. So what do I think the Jets should do? I don't think that this will be popular in the chat, but here we go. I think the Jets have to go with either Kubiak, with Nagy, or with Hackett. And I know that a lot of people might be thinking Bevel. And look, Bevel's had some experience calling plays. I get that there's some good potential young offensive coordinator candidates, but here's the reason why I go with those guys. Now, would Saleh love it because they've also had head coaching experience? Probably not, but here's my big reason. those guys have had significant experience being the head man in an offensive room. And I do think that that is incredibly important, not only for trying to bring a quarterback here and showing that you have a grown up and showing you have someone that has offensive experience, but if you're somehow still looking to salvage Zach Wilson, you need someone that's going to come in and hit the ground running. You cannot have someone that is going to be learning on the job. And look, I get Bevel looks attractive. I get that there's certain QB coaches and assistants that look attractive, but the Jets really have time for them to learn on the job in the first year? The Jets are a playoff mandate next year. They need to get in. So do you want someone that's trying to learn on the job and also develop a quarterback and learn how to run an offensive room? Or do you bring in someone that has had that experience? Hackett has that experience. Kubiak has that experience. Kubiak's a big caveat. If Kubiak agrees to come with his son, I would lean toward him being the number one option. But I don't think you can overlook Nagy. I mean, I think you look at Chicago before and after. I mean, the Bears were a playoff team, and Nagy, I do think, was limited by Mitch Trubisky. We see what Mitch Trubisky is. And that offense didn't have a ton of pieces. He would have a lot more pieces with this Jet offense that he ever had with the Bears offense. And I really respect him. Comes from that Andy Reid tree. I think he would be a really good choice and an underrated choice for the OC. I think Hackett would be a fine choice. Now, I get optically for the fan base with how bad of a tire fire Denver was, but we also have to remember that was more on Russell Wilson and Russell Wilson regressing. Now, Nathaniel Hackett played a role in that, but it just seemed like the whole Denver thing was a mess from the beginning. And I think Hackett at least has proven he can be an offensive coordinator. And at the very least, he's been in charge of the room. He knows how to handle the room. He knows how to handle play calling. Like that to me is really important because they need someone to come in right away and make an impact. You cannot bank, especially if you're Robert Saleh, you cannot bank on someone being able to learn on the job and learn on the job quickly to potentially be this team's next offensive coordinator. So I get that there's a lot of names on there, but those are my top options. Would be Kubiak if he wants to come out, but then again, that's an outlier. To me, right now, the top of the list is Ryan Nagy and Nathaniel Hackett. And I know that those are names that a lot of Jet fans go, I'm not sure about, but they've proven themselves as OCs. You want to know why I know they've proven themselves as OCs? Oh, wait a minute. They've gotten head coaching jobs because they were good offensive coordinators. There are certain people that might be better offensive coordinators than coaches. Josh McDaniels, we know, is an elite offensive coordinator. We still don't know if he's a good head coach. We know Nathaniel Hackett has done a decent job as a head coach, as an OC. Ryan Nagy got a lot out of that Bears limited offense. I mean, personally, I like Nagy more than Hackett. I think there's been more time in between. But more importantly, those guys have been OCs. They have been the head of that room. They don't have to learn how to handle the meeting room, divvy up a practice, have to learn the art of play calling. Like that is a nuance and a science. And you're seeing it with, for example, LaFleur was a great example. He was a first timer. And he, even at the end of year 2, was still learning how to be an effective play caller. There is a certain art and mastery to it. So getting someone that's gone through that and someone that has proven that they have winning game plans to the point where they were offered the opportunity to be a head coach, I think is incredibly important. And everyone wants Frank Reich to be here. Well, these candidates to me are the next best thing to Frank Reich because like Frank Reich, they were good OCs. They got head coaching opportunities. And while they didn't go as well as Frank Reich, I do think that they are people that might look at the Jets as an opportunity. Now, they might look at it also as a lame duck situation and might not want to come here. Hackett might want to take a year off after the mess that was in Denver. Nagy might just be holding out, maybe looking at this offseason and going, there's a chance Bieniemy finally gets hired as a head coach and he goes back to being the Chiefs OC. And then in a year or two, he gets offered another job. So those are other options on the table. But those personally are what I would look at as the OC. I will get to your questions. I'm just looking on the latest on the Robert Saleh press conference, which wasn't scheduled today, but is addressing the media. Robert Saleh insisting the offensive problem not one person's fault, which I agree with. There's a lot of issues with this offense. So those are my thoughts. I think we all know that there's going to be certain coordinators that are going to have some strong ties. I mean, they're not just looking for an OC; they're looking for receivers, an offensive line coach. And Sal also said, "Look, the new OC will have a say in what the Jets do at quarterback." So what that tells me what that does tell me is that they are going to try to get this done quickly because they are going to try to move on this quarterback market quickly. Because Carr today, basically, it's been announced that the Raiders are putting him on the block and he needs to be traded before the Super Bowl. So if Carr's one of the fish they're looking at or the big fish for the Jets, they're going to have to move quickly. So I'll admit it's going to be a big challenge for Zach Wilson to learn a new offense in addition to everything else he has to fix. That's the other thing, too. That's another reason why I think the Jets are moving off of Wilson, which is if they were really as hell-bent as they're describing that they don't want to make this more difficult for Wilson, they would keep the same offensive scheme. But the chance now that they're going to bring in a new offensive scheme along with all the myriad of things he needs to work on will be a challenge. And the thing is, I've said this, but my thought process was he had last season to fix these mechanical mistakes. Like, that's why I was really excited about Zach coming to year two, because I said, look, he doesn't have to learn new offense. He just has to work on his mechanics this entire offseason. Every other quarterback in his class has to learn a brand new offense. Zach doesn't. And you wonder what he did with that offseason, because it's clear those mechanics didn't exactly get fixed to the best of his abilities. And the big thing, too, of course, Carr, the Raiders are putting on the block. I think Carr's going to get traded. I really think he's going to get traded because I don't think any team is going to look at the situation and go, okay, we're going to let him get to free agency. Now, the hard part is the cap hit. He's going to have a $33 million cap hit next year if you trade for him. Now, I feel like any team that's going to trade for him is going to try to renegotiate the contract. So there's a lot to get into. There's a lot to talk about. I'm looking for the latest on Saleh. I think Saleh might be done. I'll have to keep checking. I'm pretty sure also that LaFleur isn't going to Lincoln Memorial High School like Adam Gase. This from Jordan Schultz. Jets owner Woody Johnson has been adamant with head coach Robert Saleh that the offensive staff upheaval is necessary, including offensive coach Mike LaFleur, John Benn, likely firing of Calabrese. Sources tell the score. So I mean, look, it'll be tricky because, again, like, it's funny how this was worded. I do think that Woody had a play in this. I think we have to wait to see if more of this plays out. Now, Saleh said it didn't have any influence. I do think there was a slight influence by Woody. But it was also interesting, too, because the people that are really the Jets insiders are saying, well, the Jets were planning on bringing him back, and they're letting him go get a new opportunity. So I'm really curious to see what they have to do. And it does seem like Woody is still letting the football people decide. But we all know Woody likes to make decisions. Woody likes to give directions. I think that's one of those things we'll have to keep an eye on, especially going forward. And now it looks like Woody Johnson is talking as well. So let's get to some of the Woody comments. Jets owner Woody Johnson said he is absolutely open to team pursuing adding a veteran quarterback. Said he believes good QB play is the missing piece. Of course, I think that's pretty obvious. So I do think the Jets are going to be hyper aggressive in the quarterback market. Woody Johnson on how the Jets have helped Zach Wilson. No, I don't think we did everything the right way. Amidst the Jets should have had veteran QB in place last year. Woody Johnson, if there's a playoff mandate for Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, no, I don't do mandates. Mandates don't work, but I mean, Come on. I mean, we pretty much know that the Jets, it's a playoff mandate. If they don't make the playoffs in year 3, you don't have to say it's a mandate, but we know it's pretty much a mandate. All right, guys, let's get to some of your comments. So let's see. John Pfister, I didn't love Mike LaFleur, but he wasn't that bad. We all better hope that the new candidate is better. A lot of names thrown around, but there are even more available to come. I'm not seeing too much. Let's see. Zach didn't improve because Zach didn't improve. It's not all coaching. Zach should own Zach. If he's not practicing hard now, he'll never get better. Look, I think that's the other thing, too. People are like, well, the Jets didn't help. There are things Jets could have done better. I think adding a veteran earlier in his first year probably would have been a better decision. But look, a lot of this is also on Zach, too, because I'm seeing development from other quarterbacks, like even Mac Jones. Like, I think Mac Jones didn't develop a lot, but I don't think he regressed like Zach Wilson, and he has a freaking defensive coordinator calling his plays. Is not the and get better. Let's see. Bevel was Russell Wilson's guru who wanted him. Carroll gave him credit. I like Pep Hamilton. Look, Pep Hamilton's not a bad candidate. I know I left him off with the Texans. The Texans were such a mess offensively, though. Like, the thing, too, is I really do think the Jets are trying to bring in a veteran quarterback, and I'm not sure if Pep Hamilton moves the needle in terms of bringing in. Let's see. I have to disagree. He's a factor, but no more than 30% of blame. I like Zach. He's from the same town I live in. It's not hate the fact he's awful in so many ways. Yeah, it's not. I do think Zach needs to show he developed. Well, at least we delayed draft talk for much longer into the season than was expected. I mean, Steven, usually around before Halloween, I'm talking the draft, and now I've barely talked in January. The mock drafts are coming, though. I promise you. I promise you. Let's see. I mean, this is not a bad point with Hamilton. They didn't have a ton of pieces in Houston, and they were able to basically make chicken soup out of chicken, you know what, for a lot of the season. I mean, the one thing about Pep that I like over like Rovell and everything is at least he's had experience as OC. Like, I want someone that's been the head of the OC room, someone that's called plays, someone that's been in that job that doesn't have to learn on the job. Yeah, look, that's the other thing, too, with Zach. I mean, everyone wants to blame the coaching staff, but he has his own quarterback coach. I do think the coaching could have helped him a little bit more, but a lot of this is on Zach. Let's see. Bevel has been an interim on 2 occasions, had to clean up urban mess. Yeah, that's a good point, too. I mean, Bevel had to come in. I think he was fine. It'll be curious to see what the Jets do. I won't be upset if they get Bevel, but I would have liked someone that's had a whole experience. So, like, if you're weighing Pep Hamilton versus Bevel, I think Bevel is probably the better, I think the more fascinating connection with more connections to Robert Saleh. That's a lot of what I did, too. They have the Seattle connection, but with Pep, at least he's gone a whole season, which I do think is very curious. I think Breece Hall alone makes this the most attractive OC job. But again, it's a 1-year job, though. That's why I think a lot of candidates could potentially not like the Jets job. Look, Justin, I think I know where you're going down this road. I think your thought is to bring in Greg Roman to try to lure Lamar Jackson. But look, we've learned from Denver, don't hire coaches for specific players until you have those specific players on the team. And look, I'm not sure if Lamar likes Greg Roman. I know he's had gripes with how that offense is run. So it might not, if your hope is to maybe bring Lamar, I don't think that's just there for it. Bill O'Brien's interesting. I wouldn't hate it, but there's 2 issues I see with Bill O'Brien. The first one is he doesn't really have any Robert Saleh ties. And the second, and I think this is more prevalent, I think Bill O'Brien, if he goes anywhere, he goes back to the Patriots because he has the Belichick ties. He's worked there before. He's had success there before. And Belichick's only hiring coaches he trusts and coaches that have worked with him before. And the way the offense has been this year, I think Bill will look to bring in Bill O'Brien. Like, I'll say this, I will not be shocked if Bill O'Brien is the next coach. And I'll go one step further. Like, I really think the Jets are not really in on Jimmy G. I think that if they really wanted Jimmy G, they would have probably kept LaFleur. And I think they're also telling you that they don't love Zach Wilson, because if they really love Zach, they would have tried to keep everything as stable as possible. I really think this is trying to lure a new quarterback in. And I'll go one step further. If I had to predict where certain quarterbacks are going, you know where I think Jimmy G is going next year? And I know Jet fans are going to hate this. I think he's going to go back to the Patriots. Why? Because Bill only likes people he trusts, and Bill only brings in people that he likes. And look, Bill, it's almost the greatest opportunity to give the middle finger to Robert Kraft, which is, look, I did what you wanted. I kept Brady. I kept him until he decided to leave, and we didn't go with Jimmy G, who's the guy I wanted to go with. Now you see what happens. I didn't have my guy. Let me bring in my guy, and we can get to the postseason. Because look, I think they like Mac Jones a lot, but I do think they want to get better at the quarterbacks. So I will say this: I will not be surprised. I mean, Greg Olson's not bad. I just want someone with experience. Finger Lakes Jet fan, great name, buttery name, I should say. Hackett couldn't even last a whole look. Yeah, Hackett is a tough name with the Jets. I didn't even think of that. Look. As a head coach, I think it was more with Russell Wilson than anything. But look, I think he's a good offensive coordinator, and I want someone with experience. If they do, we should immediately get Greg Roman. If you get Lamar Jackson before you get Greg Roman, it's still open. But I really think the Jets want to get this OC wrapped up quickly. And look, I just think it's like, here's the problem. What if they get Greg Roman, but they don't get Lamar? What do they do? Nagy made Mitch look like an NFL QB. Like, that's why he's probably, if I had to go my pecking order, probably, because I take Kubiak off of it, because I do think it's an idea to bring in his son to groom to be the next OC, but he's in retirement. Like, he's got to come out of retirement, and there's no hint he wants to come back. If he wants to come back, he's the top of my list. But if coaches that are active, I go Ryan Nagy 1, and I think Hackett's in the top 3 in terms of people I want. Greg Olson and Carr, plug and play production. I mean, I don't hate it. The big thing with Carr is going to be how much the Jets trade, how much do they have to give up, and then can Carr renegotiate his contract? Because it is a big cap hit. So that to me is also the very important thing. Because if he goes to free agency, which I doubt is going to happen, because people keep saying, well, they'll just wait till they'll come. They'll wait till they come. I get that, and that would be ideal for teams. But if you feel that Carr is your best option and he's number 1 on your board, and see, I don't even think he's number 1 on the Jets board. I really think it's still Lamar Jackson, because the way the Jets are talking, they want like a big splash. And look, Carr's a really good player. But I think that the Jets are going to try to go in all in on Lamar. But the issue you have with Lamar Jackson is what happens. And you have to wait, because you have to wait to see what happens with the negotiations. You have to wait to see if they franchise tag him. You have to wait and see if they franchise tag him, does Lamar want to be traded? And if he wants to be traded, will the Ravens trade him? Like, there's a lot there where with Carr, you have to act quickly, because if you don't act quickly, he's going to go somewhere else. Like, Carr's going to have a market, whether it's the Panthers, potentially the Buccaneers. Like, there will be at least minimum 5 teams that want Carr. And that's why I think the Raiders are going to get a trade with Carr, because Carr has a no trade clause. He could make it a little bit difficult, but the Raiders want pieces back. The Raiders need draft picks back. Don't forget, they traded multiple ones to get Devontae Adams. So I think that the Raiders are going to look to try to get as much back for Carr as they possibly can. And the selling point to these teams would be, look, if he goes to free agency, there's a chance that he can go to a different team. But if he has interest in you and you give us the best offer, Derek Carr's your quarterback. Okay, let's go with another Hackett. Paul was enough. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get the Hackett. This guy. Look at Carr and Olsen last year's year, big time numbers. Look, I don't hate Olsen and Carr, but this is the thing. If you're going to get Olsen and you get Carr, fine, but make sure you get Carr. If that's the route you want to go, don't do what the Broncos did and get Nathaniel Hackett. That's the other reason Hackett failed. Like, they hired Hackett for Aaron Rodgers before they got Aaron Rodgers, and then they brought in Russell Wilson. So that always was a weird thing with Hackett, and I kind of give Hackett the benefit of the doubt because that's just such a weird situation where they brought in the head coach before they got the quarterback for that head coach. So that's another reason I give Hackett a bit of a pass because that's just such a weird situation. Carl will be a New York Jet. He said no matter the city and no matter the circumstances, they will get his all. Look, I think Carr would be a good option. And look, the whole thing with Woody, I don't think Woody completely meddled with the whole LaFleur situation, but I do think he was strongly in there. And I get like the reports today from I'm trying to think where the outlet was. And look, Woody said the missing piece is quarterback. And says he has zero problem paying or exhausting other measures to get one. And look, he says that they believe in Zach, but if you're telling everyone that we are a missing piece away and we're going to do everything to get the quarterback, okay, it seems like they're moving on. And look, I think a lot of this coaching staff and GM are going to take criticism for the development of Zach because I do think they should have brought in a veteran quarterback year one. They waited too long to do that. And unfortunately, it has come back to bite them. And when Johnson says QB is the missing piece, I think that the Jets are going to go all in on a quarterback. Now, the question is, who's that quarterback? How quickly are they going to move on that? How fast are they going to try to get this done? Because if Carr is their number one option, they have to move quickly. If Carr isn't their number one option, then the Jets have a little bit of wiggle room. But the way the Carr situation is developing, I think the Raiders want to get that done. Like, I think the deadline is February 15th, which doesn't give you much time if you're the Jets. So, let's see. Woody a counterman? No mandate. Snoopy, that's BS. You know that it's not an official mandate, but if Robert Saleh doesn't get to the playoffs in year 3, if Joe Douglas doesn't get to the playoffs in year 5, they're gone. Microfox, I brought this up a little bit earlier. I don't think that Bill O'Brien's coming for 2 reasons. First of all, he has no ties to Saleh. Every candidate I mentioned earlier, and you can go back and watch, I did a whole thing on my candidates. They all had a tie to Saleh in some capacity. And the other thing with Bill O'Brien, I think if he goes anywhere, it's the Patriots. Because Bill only wants to hire people he knows and likes. Now, I don't know if he likes Bill O'Brien, but the way that offense went, I could see him bringing back Bill O'Brien. He loves to bring back former Patriot assistants and former Patriot coordinators. Like, I'm going to say this now. I will not be shocked if I see this in 2023. Jimmy G's the quarterback and Bill O'Brien's the OC in New England. I will not be shocked. Like, I'm calling it now. I could see that happening. Let's see. I fell a little bit behind. So let me get back to some of the more recent comments. We will see how deep Douglas Saleh's connections really are going to be harder than many people think. Finding someone experienced to come here during a playoff mandate for the coaching staff. Yeah, like that's the thing too. Like, Woody can say there's no playoff mandate, but every coordinator who is looking at his job understands that this is going to be a playoff mandate. It's very similar. I mean, they're all very similar. Like, there's connections to the San Francisco. Like, that's a reason why they're almost identical to San Francisco. And people wonder, why is San Francisco Seattle always a tight game, always a bare knuckle fight, always close games? It's because they both play the same systems, both know those systems inside and out. So they know what you like to do. They know the strengths and the weaknesses of those systems. So that's why I think the Seattle ties are also strong as well. I see a lot of here. Let's go and check out some of the other chats. This isn't a bad one. So June the GM, thanks for joining us. I don't know if you're new to the channel. I don't remember seeing you in the chat a lot. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Appreciate you contributing. Appreciate you watching. Monken, I don't think is a bad idea. The only problem you have is there's no connection. And like, I just feel like Saleh's going to want someone that he kind of knows or at least have some connection. Because like, even with Hackett and Nagy, they have connections to Matt. And Matt, I think, is really critical. So don't forget, Matt is one of Saleh's best friends. And I can tell you, it probably kills him that he had to move on from his younger brother. So I'm just looking around the league. And look, you want someone with I personally want someone with a proven NFL track record. And while Monken is great, I don't know if he would be up there for well. We need QB first. No OC will come here without knowing what they're working with. To be honest with you, Melvin, I don't hate that idea, but I think that only works for Carr because these coaching candidates are going to go quickly. Like the teams want their staff in place as soon as possible. Because if you're the Jets, like the timeline doesn't seem like a lot of time, but think about what's coming in the coming months where you want to probably have the OC bare minimum figured out by the beginning of February. Because what happens in February? Well, you begin the draft process. You begin the combine in Indianapolis. Then you go pro days. And it's important because you need to know what your system is. You need to know the strengths and weaknesses of the certain players within that system. And look, while they say the system will be different, I don't think it will be that big of a departure because don't forget, Breece Hall had a lot of success in the system. Garrett Wilson had a lot of success in the system. I still think they'll be successful regardless of system, but there are certain characteristics of the system where they worked very well. Our defense room is deep. We have trade pieces. Raiders D is their weakness. Well, who are you training, John? The thing is, I think the Raiders want more draft picks than defense. Like who are they? They're not defensive line. They've invested in Chandler Jones. They're not taking like Carl Lawson. Like they're not going to take CJ Mosley in that contract. If they do, that'd be a godsend. I mean, the one piece on the defense I see the Jets legitimately trading is Bryce Hall, but that's to maybe get like a 4th or 5th round pick. Like if he's an add-in to the trade, sure. But if I had to guess today, I would say a 1st round would be rich for Carr, but we've also seen how deep the quarterback market is. Just think of what Russell Wilson went for last year and when multiple twos get it done, like if the Jets had to give up this year's second and the following year's second, the problem is like, is a team going to offer a 1st round pick for Carr or multiple 1st round picks? Like I think as fans, we don't see that happening, but we've seen the last couple of years, like the QB market is insane. Like, well, look what was given up for Deshaun Watson. And again, I get Wilson and Watson have higher ceilings or they're talent-wise probably considered better talents than Carr, but Carr isn't that far away. Like, do the Panthers give up a 1st round pick or there are 2 1s? Like, that's what I think the Raiders are hoping for, is to recoup some of those losses from Devontae Adams. And the Jets, like, if you trade the 1 in a late pick, I don't hate it for Carr. But if you have to trade multiple 1s for Carr, I think then you get into a situation where like, not sure. They're not trading Quinnen Williams. They're not. But if I had to trade multiple 1s for Jackson, I would. Carr wants to win. I doubt he'll want to go to those other teams mentioned. The Jets give Carr the best chance to win the weapons and defense. Look, I think Carr's a good fit for the Jets, but there's other teams out there that I do think could be in the market. I mean, I know Jet fans are going to hate me saying this, but the Dolphins are a mess right now. Like Tua might not play football again. Could they be interested in Carr? Even the Patriots. Like the Patriots cannot draft. They've been terrible at drafting. Could they go all in now? I think Jimmy G's a more realistic option for them. But I just look around this league and I go, okay, the AFC South. I think the Texans are going to draft a quarterback. I mean, could the Colts be a dark horse for Carr? Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. And then the NFC, I think, is the big conference to worry about because that conference is terrible. I look at like I think the Commanders, because of all the money they have tied up in the limited draft picks, I think would be out. But if they could somehow get in there, they would. Rams have no picks. Cardinals wouldn't make a move. Lions, obviously not. I mean, the Bears, I think, are going to take a quarterback. But the NFC South is interesting. The Panthers have been hyper aggressive. The Saints have a good roster, but they don't have a quarterback. I mean, I think the Falcons will go. I can't even rule the Falcons out because the Falcons were aggressive for Deshaun Watson. And that division, think about this. The Buccaneers won that division 8-9. Every other team was 7-10. If you're the Falcons and you add Carr, if you're the Saints and you add Carr, if you're the Panthers and you add Carr, heck, if you're the Buccaneers and you add Carr when Brady leaves, Carr would be easily the best quarterback in the NFC South. So I do think we have to look at that as a potential option. I don't think Woody's back fully. I do think Woody. I have to get more information. Like some sources are gonna. It's funny because like when you listen to the national media, a lot of them saying, "Oh, this was Woody's decision." But when you listen to a lot of the local people that cover the Jets in and out, that it seems like this was done internally, that Saleh and LaFleur, because look, they said they wanted him back and they basically, like that to me is the big thing is Connor Hughes' tweet, which I think kind of debunks the Woody situation where they wanted LaFleur back, but they let him explore their options. And basically he made the decision to mutually part ways. They didn't fire him. They basically agreed, okay, we're moving on. Johnson, the last 6 games are very frustrating. I see the potential in this team and what Joe has done and what Joe and Robert have done improving the team, getting all those unbelievable stars we have. We have a lot of potential, so that makes it more frustrating. I think that's how exactly this Jet fan feels. The key takeaways from Woody Johnson. Are you willing to spend for a big veteran quarterback? Absolutely. No matter the cost, the question. We've got caps, so there's an amount you can spend, but yeah, that's the kind of the missing piece. Johnson on Zach Wilson. He had a tough year. There's no denying. I still have confidence that I've seen some kernels of real talent there. The confidence level, wherever it was, went down. So that's certainly frustrating for him. QB rotation, very hard to do in the NFL. Again, I don't believe that there's no playoff mandate. And look, even Saleh saying, like, it's funny because on one hand, they keep saying, well, we want to develop Zach. We're going to look to develop Zach. But the next hand, they're all in to get a quarterback. If you believe in Zach, even half believe, you're not going to say, we're all in on getting a quarterback. Let's see. Lamar would be amazing, but had played 16 games once, averaged 12 last few years, only 3. Look, he would still be the best quarterback arguably the Jets have had since Joe Namath. So, look, sometimes you got to take a risk on these quarterbacks. There's a reason Lamar might be available. And I think he's an unbelievable person and an unbelievable presence in the room. Like, I don't think he's a head case. I don't think you have issues with him. Can we just get an OC that can call great plays and adjust the team defense if we keeping Zach, an OC who can develop a QB? Yeah, look, that's why I like Nagy. That's why I like Hackett. Like, I want someone that experience as an OC. I don't want someone – because, again, if you have experience as an OC and a play caller, it allows you to have more time and the ability to work with the quarterback more specifically. Where if you're learning on the job, like even though Bevel has experience, he hasn't done a full season. It takes away from you trying to develop a quarterback. Snoopy, I mean, I get the idea because of offense, but look, we saw the impact when Q is on the field. Like Quinnen, you ask everyone in the Jets locker room, Q is the team leader. Like Q is the guy everyone respects. Like everyone on the defense says, when our defense goes is when Quinnen goes. So you're going to take that out of the locker room. I think Q is not just important for how good he is, but just because of his importance in that locker room. He's a homegrown star. And I do think it would create a lot of ripples, even if you got a guy like Lamar. Like I'd trade, to me, on defense, the two untouchables are Sauce and Quinnen. Like that's it. Like I would not move either of those. I mean, let's put it this way. People love, I think it's easy to dance on LaFleur's grave today, but let's also be honest. LaFleur was 10 times better than anything Adam Gase does. I mean, guys, I know we try to bury those repressed memories of an Adam Gase offense. Like it's kind of funny where everyone's like, oh my God, LaFleur's the worst. LaFleur's the worst. LaFleur's the worst. Well, do we remember Adam Gase? The only thing Gase did better was like the scripted plays. The first 15 plays of the game, Gase was better. Like, could we have brought Gase back just to do the first 15 plays and then turn over to LaFleur? That might have been something. Yeah, Jared, I mean, it's a good point. I get the health. Part of me always wonders, though, with the health this year, how much is it Lamar? Like, because could Lamar actually play right now? Like, I hate to say, but Lamar also didn't get a contract. Like, is he trying to protect himself? Like, so, Pete, I already said this at the beginning. They're not getting Frank Reich. I said, let's nip this in the butt. Frank Reich's getting head coaching interviews right now. He's not going to take an OC job. If anything, he takes a year off and he gets a head coaching job next year. Yeah, I get the health. And look, everyone's saying the ability to win the playoffs. Here's a fun fact. Can the Jets just get to the damn playoffs? It's been 12 years. Like, we got to take the steps. Like, look, if Lamar gets you to the playoffs and can't win for the first 2 years, fine. But can we get to the damn playoffs? Like, the Jets need to get to the dance. Let's worry about them doing stuff at the dance when they get there, okay? Raiders have no leverage. They still have his rights, though. That's the thing, Nick. So I think Carr has a list of teams in mind, and that's going to be the biggest thing is what teams does he want and what teams can pony up? Because, look, I think Indy's going to draft a rookie quarterback, but Carolina has the 9th pick in the draft. They have a lot of good young pieces, and they have a bunch of picks, especially later picks, coming in from the whole McCaffrey trade. I mean, they got a haul for Christian McCaffrey. So I wouldn't rule the Panthers out. Like, if the Panthers, I'm just looking up what they got in the McCaffrey trade in terms of picks. Because they got a lot. They got, let's see. Because they got a bunch. I'm trying to see what the exact draft compensation was. It'd just be easier if it just would tell you like what they got. So let's see. Carolina got a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick in 2023. So basically, the Panthers now have multiple 2s this year. They have a 3rd and 4th. Like, could they package all that? And could they package a 1 and a 3 and a future 2 or something to get? I think the Panthers, because the Panthers have more picks and a higher pick, they could potentially get Carr. And I keep saying this, the Panthers, too, could be where Carr wants to go. Warm weather, and he's easily the best quarterback in that division. He's never been the best quarterback in his division in his life, if Brady leaves, which it looks like he's going to. Even if Carr comes to the Jets, Carr's still the 2nd best quarterback in this division behind Josh Allen. Like, that's one thing I think we have to consider with Carr. Carr can control where he wants to go, and while the Jets are certainly an attractive place for Carr, I feel like the Panthers are a team in the NFC South. Like after the NFC South, I think the Jets are the best option. But the NFC South, for me, is appealing for Carr because he's a warm weather kid. It's warm weather. None of those games are up north. And he could make the case he's the best quarterback in that division. Does he really want to be the second guy again? He's been behind Mahomes now for years in the AFC West. He goes to the NFC South. He's the best quarterback in the NFC South by a mile. So does he really want to come to the Jets? And well, yeah, it's great the Jets could win maybe 10, 11 games with him. But if Josh Allen wins 12, that still means the Jets have to go on the road in the playoffs, have to be a wild card team in the playoffs. Where Carr wins 11, 12 games in the South, not only do they get home the division, but you could be talking home field. I mean, that to me is something I don't think a lot of people are talking about. I do think it is important to bring that up. See, this isn't a bad thing either, June, and I'm glad you brought this up, and I know a lot of Jet fans will hate this. I wouldn't mind Jared Goff. I really wouldn't. So, from what I understand, the Goff contract. Now, the thing with Goff, though, is the Lions have the 6th pick, and they have 2 first-round picks. I really think they're going to draft a quarterback. The thing, though, is do you draft a quarterback and have them sit behind Goff? Because the hard part with them is Goff's out. Because if they cut Goff after 2023, they save $108 million and only get a $10 million cap hit because the cap hit is going to be 25 and 26. So they would save a lot of money. But again, 25, 26 million, the cap hit, actually, no, I'm sorry. The cap hit's 30, 31 million, which is a bit high for Goff, but now some of the current NFL contracts isn't horrible. It's going to be tough for Detroit because they just missed the playoffs. I think it'd be hard to sell that locker room. I wouldn't hate Goff. I mean, this is someone that's also 29, 30 years old. I know he doesn't play great in cold weather, but you can make the same case for Carr. Like, I don't hate Goff. I really don't. If you don't swing big, why are you here? Let's see. I think Zach's going to be the backup too. I really do. Look, I think Minshew's off the table, PG. I like Minshew a lot, but when Woody Johnson's saying that they're going to be hyper-aggressive in the quarterback market, I don't think that's Gardner Minshew. I like Minshew to compete with Zach, but if they say they're a quarterback away, and I like Minshew, I feel Minshew can be a starting NFL caliber quarterback. I don't think that's going to be enough to move the needle. Panthers want Lamar. I haven't seen those reports. I think a lot, like, let's also be honest too. If Lamar hits the market, there's going to be at least 10 teams that want Lamar. Yeah, I look, he's locked up long-term June. I think they might cut him. The big thing though with Goff is I would not be surprised if they renegotiate the contract because it's a place he likes. It's a dome stadium. He's had success with the Lions. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to renegotiate the contract, but you can't also sleep on the Lions as well because the Lions have a plethora of draft picks. They have a ton. But, I mean, look, Goff this last year was pretty good. I mean, 9-8, 65% completion, 29 touchdowns to 7 picks. I mean, you look at his career, he's basically been like a 2 to 2.5 touchdown interception guy. He's been a high completion percentage guy. I mean, even the first year in Detroit, which they were 3-10, he has 67% completion percentage. I mean, this guy is accurate with the football. He hasn't had 10 interceptions the last 2 seasons while in Detroit. Detroit also has a lot of playmakers. I think we also have to keep that in mind. But I wouldn't rule out Detroit because don't forget, they have the 6th pick and they have the 18th pick. I don't think Chicago or Houston would trade. Chicago, I don't think would trade with Detroit because they don't want to give them an in division. But Arizona at 3 could be interesting because they might. Because I think they're going to still stick with Kyler. They're kind of stuck with that contract, but to get more picks, I mean, they're a team to keep an eye on. And look, I wouldn't hate Goff either. Someone to keep an eye on, depending on. Look, I've talked about Bevel before, and I'm glad you brought that up, Carlos. So here's my thoughts on Bevel. I think he will be the hot button candidate. I think he will be someone that will be talked about a lot because of his connections with Saleh, really good connections. He's been a OC, albeit mostly interim, with filling in. The big thing I get concerned with Bevel is while he has been an OC, he look the last time he's kind of been the fill-in OC. And I'm just looking. I mean, the best Bevel did was when he was with Seattle and he had Russell Wilson. Without Russell Wilson, you look OC in Seattle, 13th ranked, 24th with Detroit, 30th in Detroit in 2020, and even Jacksonville. Like the concerning thing I have with Bevel is like yards 26 in Jacksonville, and I know they were messing under Urban Meyer, but you had Trevor Lawrence. So I don't hate Bevel. I think that you obviously have those ties, and look, he's got experience as an OC. So he's definitely in the top 3 of my choices. It would be Bevel. I still think I like Nagy a little bit better. I don't know, guys. Like I think Ryan Nagy got the short end of the stick in Chicago. Now, I like Hackett too. If I don't think Hackett will be popular with the fan base, I don't have a problem with Bevel. But the thing is, will Bevel want to come here? Because I'm really curious to see what happens. Because Bevel also didn't really get a quarterback in Miami to work with because of the whole Tua situation. I mean, I think if you're Bevel too, like you almost feel like the Dolphins, even though they made the playoffs, are still kind of a lame duck franchise in terms of their head coaching position. I wouldn't hate Bevel. I think he's probably in the top 3 of candidates. Now, does he move the needle? Maybe it's not. I think Nagy would be my number 1 choice. But I wouldn't hate Bevel. I'm cool with Goff. Yeah, we already have our Goff already and Mike White. Look, yeah, but Mike White can't stay healthy, man. I like Mike White, but twice he's gotten injured. I don't think Woody's sending signals to Lamar. Look, I have the money you're looking for. And look, Lamar's going to be back, but the problem with Lamar, and this is the thing that screws up the things for the Jets. Like the Jets could be screwed trying to wait for Lamar. There's so many things that have to happen. Do the Ravens give him a full contract? That's number 1. At this point, I don't think they do. Step 2, they tag Lamar. Okay. Well, then do they force Lamar to play under the tag? The Ravens they don't have to be in a rush. Like they don't have to trade him. Like they could go into training camp next year with Lamar under the franchise tag and him holding out. So if you're the Jets, unless Lamar and the Ravens are dropping really big hints that they're going to tag and trade him, and that Lamar basically is telling the Ravens, I don't care if you tag me, I'm never playing for you again, which I don't think we've gotten to that point yet. The problem is the Jets have to move quickly, because if you don't move quickly, you could lose out on Carr. You could lose out on Goff potentially. You could lose out on these quarterbacks, and then you're stuck with a terrible situation going into next year. So, yeah, Bears are the most fascinating team. And look, I saw this float out there too. Oh, the Jets trade for Justin Fields. The Jets are not trading for Justin Fields. I'm sorry. I like Fields, but he can't stay healthy. He hasn't developed as a passer. And if you're gonna go that route to try to trade for a quarterback, get a proven commodity. Go get Lamar Jackson. Sir Fowl, player of Brooklyn, what's up? Good to hear from you. Yeah, Saleh's not going over. If they were moving on from Saleh, he would have been fired already. I think they want Carr, but he's not coming here. Not. I think it will be interesting. I do think there's going to be a lot of competition for Carr. Rodgers, I wouldn't touch Rodgers. Even if Rodgers is available, I would not touch Rodgers. Because here's the thing. If you're going to trade the assets required to get a quarterback like that, Lamar, if you trade for, is going to be here a couple of years. Carr, if you trade for, is going to be here a couple of years. What's to say Aaron Rodgers? And look, Aaron Rodgers cannot handle the Green Bay, which is the easiest media. You don't think Aaron Rodgers, like he is this is turning into the Brett Favre saga again. Like it's scary. Like you can change the names almost, and it's similarly eerie. And I know people are making that connection with the Jets, but I'm not taking Rodgers for one season and then he's like, I'm gone, guys. Like I could easily see that happen. I would not want that. And at least with Goff, I got a track. He's 29. I mean, there's runway ahead of Carr. There's runway ahead of Lamar. There's runway ahead of Goff. I'm not sure what the runway is ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Lamar would have asked to trade in the next couple of weeks for them to wait on Lamar. Yeah, like that's the thing. If Lamar in the next 2 weeks or right after the season says he wants out, that's one thing. And here's the other thing with Lamar. It's not just the Jets in the room, guys. Like we keep forgetting this. Like, and I get it as Jet fans, but if Lamar hits the trade block, how many teams could come after him? I mean, basically, if you don't have a quarterback, they're taking calls. Like even a team like Chicago could be saying, look, if we trade the number 1 pick and get enough picks, we can trade for Lamar. I mean, I'm just looking around the NFL, like teams that would love Lamar Jackson. I mean, I doubt the Dolphins or Patriots. You don't think that they would explore that potentially? You don't think that the teams in the AFC South, like the Titans or Colts, maybe kick the tires a little bit? I mean, the Texans have 2 first-round picks. Texans are dead right now. Texans need some star power. Now, I don't think Lamar would want to go there. But then I look at like the NFC. I mean, I know the Giants got to allow Daniel Jones, but would they be better with Lamar Jackson? Would the Commanders be better with Lamar Jackson? I know the Seahawks got an unbelievable season from Geno Smith, but he's in a contract year. Lamar, they also have a high first-round pick. I mean, I wouldn't rule that out. I mean, the Lions have multiple first-round picks. The Lions could be a dark horse. Think about it. They have 2 first-round picks this year. What if they go, we like Goff, but we saved the money by cutting him and trading the picks to get Lamar? I mean, I don't think you were off the table. Then the NFC South, like I said with Carr. I mean, Saints, Panthers, Falcons. Like the Falcons were going to give up all those picks for Deshaun Watson. You don't think they'd be willing to pony them up again for Lamar Jackson? Let's see. When does free agency and trades begin? Trades can technically happen, I think, after the Super Bowl, although it looks like the Carr thing could happen. I think you can trade before, as long as you're eliminated. Free agency, I think free agency is weird because free agency is March, but the tampering period obviously happens beforehand. Tony Pauline, disconnect between staff regarding LaFleur. Let me check that out really quick. It's tough because I'm trying to balance between Twitter and all that. So I'm just trying to see what's some of the latest from the Woody Johnson presser. Woody Johnson's to Jet fans who remain optimistic. I want to give them what they want. They want wins and they deserve wins, and I'll try to get them wins. I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen for them. No stone unturned. Saleh will do it. Douglas will do it. Look, I do think Saleh believes in these 2 guys. I think Woody does believe in those 2, and he's seen a lot in the development of this team. But I'm telling you, Woody, and I get the frustration with Woody, but I will say this to Jet fans. Woody does care, and Woody does want to win. Now, the ways we've gotten the last 15, 20 years haven't always been great, but at least you have an owner that's trying. Like, you don't have an owner that's like apathetic like the Texans are, who doesn't give a rip. So, look, I think that they're going to be hyper aggressive. And look, I'm telling you, Woody wants to make a splash this offseason. And this is the other thing, too, why I think the Jets are trying to make a big quarterback trade. This is the best the Jets have looked in years because the Jets have talent on this team. The Jets have a good defense. The Jets have a lot of good young pieces and a lot of good, exciting young pieces. Like, this is completely different than where they were last year, you were saying they had to hit a home run in the draft to be competitive. They did that. Not only are they competitive, they have some really good pieces. Woody Johnson, echo Mike LaFleur's comments when asked if the Jets did everything they could to develop Wilson the right way. No, I don't think we did everything the right way. No. He thinks that they should have brought a veteran. He was asked about the 12-year playoff drought, which was something. Woody Johnson, the expectations to make the playoffs every year. This team is loaded and ready to go. So there's no playoff mandates, but you're expecting this team to make the playoffs every season. Okay, I think that's pretty clear. So there's no mandate, but at the same time, we have the talent to be in the playoffs every year. And look, I don't think that's a wrong statement. I really don't. Because I look at this Jet team and I go, okay, they have a lot of talent. They have a team that, let's be honest, if they had average quarterback play, like Rich Cimini had a great stat, they scored the league average in points to be 11-5. Yeah, like Woody Johnson more on the Jets fans. I don't think our fans are tired. I don't think our fans are tired of it. They can see with their eyes what happened this year. Said he talks to fans in the parking lots before games. They're optimistic, but they've been optimistic. I want to give them what they want. They want wins. They deserve wins, and I'll try to get them wins. Woody Johnson, what's the definition of frustration? Means you've seen ingredients of success and they don't happen. If you're lousy, you can't be frustrated. But we have a great team, a great nucleus of young players. And I think that's why Jet fans and the way the season ends, why people are so frustrated. Because the Jets, you see that they are good enough, that they have the pieces. It wasn't like last year or 2 years ago where you were just looking to even get a competent 53. Like, seriously, like the difference between 2020 this season and 2021, Quinnen Williams was arguably the one piece like, okay, we know what we have in Quinnen Williams. We have a really good player. And he took even another step in 2022. On that defense, you're like, okay, John Frankenmeyer's nice piece. The corner's solid, I guess. Offensive side of the ball, Elijah Moore showing some flashes, but now you've got Breece Hall, you've got Garrett Wilson, you've got Sauce, you've got Michael Carter, DJ Reed in the secondary. You have emerging Jermaine Johnson. I mean, there is a lot of talent on this team, and that's why I think there's so much frustration. The Dolphins don't have picks. We need to fix the O-line and find a bomb tier. ML will be a star in this league. I think LaFleur maybe. Look, Minshew's a good bang for the buck, but the Jets aren't looking for bang for their buck. They're looking to make the playoffs, and I don't think Minshew moves the needle. And when Woody says they want a big fish, Woody can't sell season tickets with the announcement of Goff. The ending of this season was a PR nightmare. I don't think people are making it sound like Goff's a horrible quarterback. Like, I know I think Carr is basically closer to Derek. I think Goff is closer to Carr than we want to admit, and he's also younger. So, I mean, look, I don't think there's that huge of a difference between the two. I personally think Carr is a little bit better, and I think he has handled situations and adversity a little bit better than Goff, but I don't think there's that huge of a difference. I think he should. Personally, I'm surprised that Sauce wasn't on the All-Pro team. I have a gripe with the All-Pro team. So you're telling me Quinnen Williams didn't make the All-Pro team as a defensive tackle with 12 sacks? I mean, he was the best defensive tackle in football this year, and he didn't make the All-Pro. The All-Pro team's BS. Like, I love Aaron Donald, but Donald missed 6 games, and their team was freaking garbage this year. I mean, at least Hardy made the All-Pro team. Sauce, I get maybe because he's a rookie, but I think Garrett Wilson has to be the offensive rookie of the year for 2 big reasons. Number one, I know Kenneth Walker will be the popular pick because he's been a great running back this year. But number one, Garrett Wilson played with 4 different quarterbacks this year. 4. I don't think that can be understated. And despite the quarterback carousel, be as productive as he was. Where with Walker, Seattle had a good offensive line the entire season, the same quarterback all season. He didn't have to deal with as much adversity, as Garrett Wilson. So I think Garrett Wilson should be, and I'm not just being biased because I'm a Jet fan, maybe a little bit, but that's me. Carr's the ability to pick his team and has a no trade cost. Only way he comes here if we sign Olsen first. Again, Johnny, I get. Have people forgotten what the hell happened to the Broncos? Oh, we'll hire the head coach and then we'll get Aaron Rodgers. Well, what happens if you bring in Olsen and Carr goes somewhere else? I mean, then the Jets are really going to look stupid. I mean, can we get the horse first before we build the barn? Seriously. Oh, I mentioned this earlier, Micro Fox. I wouldn't. Chad Johnson, if they think he'd be a good fit, I'm all for it. Chad Johnson, big Jet fan. He also likes Zach Wilson, so maybe he might be a Zach Wilson supporter in here. I wouldn't hate it. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I agree. I don't think it's close. Ben, yeah, they have been removed from the staff. That was I know that about 40 minutes ago. They are no longer on the staff. So Quincy Enunwa, NFL's a cold business with Mike LaFleur out. Who did the Jets get their note? See, Quincy Enunwa. I've been out of the league for a minute because I thought they might give him one more year. Then I remembered. I'm trying to see what Quincy's going on about because Quincy has some really good points. We had new core almost every year I played. So OCs have short leases, especially with the young QBs. Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what the Jets do at the offensive coordinator position. There's a lot of options. And look, I keep saying, like, I gave you my top three. And the reason I gave you those top three is because what do they all have in common? The common thread that they have is that they've had a wide experience of calling plays. Like the Jets need someone that have experience calling plays and that have been an offensive coordinator. I'm done with trying to find someone that doesn't have experience as a play caller. Like they need an experienced play caller. Like you cannot. Agree, Goff and Carr about the same. That's why I don't want either of them. I mean, 12 years, I get it. Carr's more mobile. Goff's a decent athlete, though. He's a good enough athlete. So let's see. Just checking to make sure there's no updates right now. I see Schefter post something. Yeah, I think it's about the AFC Championship game. Yeah, I'm just making sure the Jets aren't releasing any more news because, look, this is an ongoing story, and I feel bad because I had stay or go all ready to go today. I even teased it on the channel yesterday, and I'm like, oh, great, I'm going to do this. My 12 Jets who are going to stay and go. I promise that's coming down the line. Yeah. Lejay Duzable, I'm just seeing what he has to say because he's got some really good things. Yeah. So, yeah, I love Buffalo Jet fan. He has a great point. In terms of the Jet fan media reaction, Jets were in a lose-lose spot. Keep LaFleur. Wow, Saleh just kept his buddy. LOL Jets. Fire LaFleur. Wow, more musical chairs and no stability. LOL Jets. Unfortunately, that's the problem where the Jets are right now because until they win and until they get into the playoffs and until they get rid of this narrative, look, I think they're going in the right way with defeating this narrative. Then until they get this. So here's an interesting deadline from Vic to 4. The trade deadline for Derek Carr is February 15th. He's not extending the deadline. So basically, if no trade is done by the 15th, they have to cut him. So that will be fascinating to see what happens with Carr. And this is the problem I have with Lamar. So if the Jets like Carr and really want to go after Carr, they're going to have to do it fast because I will be shocked if Carr gets the free agency because the Raiders need to get something. They need to get something. they need to get something done because you cannot just sit there and wait. And that's the problem with Lamar. I love Lamar, but Lamar, again, I've said the process for him is he's got to get franchised. If he doesn't get a new deal, then what happens? Well, I mean, the Ravens could basically play hardball and hold him through training camp. Jets cannot go into training camp hoping Lamar becomes available. Now, if the Ravens were smart, they have to act well before the draft because you want to get ahead of this, but they're also in the playoffs right now. So, I mean, one other interesting name I would keep an eye on is DeAndre Hopkins because Hopkins has said that he wants to trade. If I'm the Jets, I look at getting DeAndre Hopkins and bring him in and pair him with Garrett Wilson. That's another player I keep an eye on, and that will help, I think, make this more attractive for a quarterback. Then the question becomes, what do you do with Elijah Moore? Well, if I have to trade Elijah Moore to get a piece, I think that helps. Let's see. This team needs a true leader at quarterback. I break the curse. I don't hate that. I agree. Carr's theoretically more mobile, but he never runs. It was a big complaint from Raiders fans. Look, Carr's pocket presence also isn't great, and he does turn the football over. So there's still warts in his game. There's a reason why the Raiders are moving on from him. But let's be honest. He's better than any quarterback the Jets have had in a long time. I just thought about this. Why would Carr help Las Vegas and have his new team lose draft picks? Look, I get it. I get that point, but the Raiders also, like, if the Raiders can also counter and say, look, like, we did right by you. We're doing right by you. So can you help us a little bit? Carr could refuse to. It's a fascinating thing. I agree with that to an extent. Like, if he's smart, he would do that. But I also feel like he doesn't want to completely screw the Raiders. I know there's a lot of animosity there, but I mean, the other thing too is if he hits the market, I'm curious to see what happens. Like, could a team, because he's got a big cap hit. The big thing, the one reason why a trade might make sense is like he might be able to keep his big cap hit. Now, I do think eventually he's going to have to renegotiate the last 2 years. But if he hits the free agent market, will he get over that cap hit? I think he'll get close, but we'll have to see. There's always risk involved when you have to do that. But, you know, it is fascinating to see how this whole Jets situation worked out. They've shook up the staff. Ben gone. Calabrese gone. I mean, they're looking for a wide receiver coach, obviously, O-line coach. It is interesting, too, because one of the names mentioned was Pep Hamilton. And one person I follow is Jake Asman. And Jake does a good job talking about the Jets, but people forget, because in Jets fandom, we know him as the big Jet fan. We know him as a great someone that creates a lot of great Jets content, has a great opinion, and I do really respect Jake's opinion. But we forget he also covers the Texans, and I thought that this was very fascinating. He thinks Bevel will be the name to watch because of the great relationship with Saleh, but someone early in the chat mentioned Pep Hamilton, and Jake said this, look, I'm rescinding my fandom if they hire Pep Hamilton. Quote, Pep Hamilton was an absolute disaster with the Texans this season. Now, I do think Pep didn't have a great deck when you basically knew that they didn't have a shot and they didn't really have a quarterback and really any weapons, and your best weapon didn't even want to play for your team. But if someone's covering the Texans and watches the Texans all the time and that's their response, not exactly a ringing endorsement. Let's see. But no, look, Woody wants to win games. I do think that's obviously important. I mean, I think he gets the fans' frustration. And like, look, Woody's a fan. He's frustrated too. This team took a major step back. A new OC, QB, and scheme take a couple of years to develop. Joe, It depends. It depends on who they bring in. I think they're going to bring in someone with a very similar system or not change it too much. There might be tweaks. And look, I think they're looking for a veteran quarterback, which makes that transition easier than getting a rookie quarterback. But again, that's the concern. That's one of the reasons why I started the show off an hour ago, basically saying, look, I didn't love the LaFleur firing. I get it. I understand it to an extent. But at the same time, I would be very cautious because we always think the grass is greener on the other side. And you have to now bring in an OC, and will they be willing to come in for a year? And that's another turn off this job. Like, if the Jets will make the playoffs, they're out of a job. So I do think it will be very intriguing how the Jets attack this. Yeah, I don't know if Brady wants to come here, though. I don't. Ed D. Jones and said, I'll take the job. The offense will not compete for a Super Bowl till after they bring in wide receivers to help. Brian Dable, I think you mean. The four parties are worse than the Zach Truthers. Look, I do think LaFleur, like, I started the show off, Snoopy, and I said, look, there are reasons I think LaFleur shouldn't have lost a job. I don't think LaFleur was just the reason, but the problem I had with LaFleur was the last 3 weeks. And what the last 3 weeks was like, look, as a rookie, he had a lot of innovative plays, creative trick plays. Like, this offense went nuts. Like, they didn't hold back. And the problem is, when we've seen that and we've seen that creativity, and then your team can't manufacture touchdowns and you're playing vanilla, basic offense, you're not trying anything. I think that's what came back to ultimately get LaFleur was, well, we've seen this creativity. We've seen this innovation last year when we didn't have pieces, and now we have some playmakers, and yet you're not utilizing that. But this will definitely be fascinating. Another chapter being written this offseason, and another thing we have to keep an eye on is the Jets offensive coordinator position with Mike LaFleur gone. There'll be a lot. We'll give our reactions on candidates, on the quarterback, but buckle up, Jet fans. It's going to be a wild offseason. We'll bring you all the latest here on Rich Sports Talk. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future episodes. Again, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Always appreciate the comments. Always appreciate you being a part of the show. Make sure you check out the community page for future episode ideas, polls. Would love to get your feedback, and I can't wait to see what you guys recommend. But we'll be back with more Jets content here on Rich Sports Talk.